Today we are going to learn how to use Power Virtual Agent to create a chatbot as a store locator. Now we are not going to create a map locator from the scratch. We are using an existing web-based map locator from a bank website. We're just creating this chatbot as a learning purpose and also provide an alternative way for the end user to search the locations. First, we're going to create a chatbot and ask user to provide a location to search. The chatbot will call the cloud flow. Subsequently, the cloud flow will call the desktop flow. We're using the desktop flow RPA process to do a web scraping on the website. Once the desktop flow has completed the search, the data will return back to the cloud flow. And then we create multiple variables to pass this data back to the Power Virtual Agent. Back in the PVA, we will display this information back to the end user using adaptive cards. Let's start the RPA process with a desktop flow. Create a new flow. Call it web scraping. And create. The first step we will do is to launch the Edge browser. You need to find of Edge, click and drag to the main window. The URL we're going to do is Commonwealth Bank's website for branch search. The URL is here. And we'll click Save. Next thing we need to do is to provide an input, the search string. So we'll look for popular text fields on the web page. Next, create a new UI element. Go to your website. Look for the area where you're gonna put the search string is. Control and left click. Did we get it? Okay, we got it. Click on Save. We need to provide a default value. Let's search for Melbourne. Next, after we type search string, we need to hit the search bar. So we look for press button on web page. Now we need to create a new UI element. Click on Add UI element. Go to your website, hover your mouse on the search bar. Click on Control and left click. Now we captured the UI element for the search bar. Go Save. Now let's go to the website and have a look what happens after we search something. Let's say we search suburb Melbourne. Click on Search. The website seems like take a second to load. It's very smooth, by the way. But we want to make sure the data is loaded before we start capturing, extract these informations. So we're gonna look for this text showing branches. Copy that. We want to wait for this text to appear on this web page before we move on to the next step. So let's add a delay here. Let's search for wait. How about this browser automation? Wait for content, web page content. And the content we're gonna wait for is contain not the element. We're gonna wait for a text because that seems like text to me. We'll paste that. We wait for this text to appear on the web page. That is a signal for us to move on to the next step, which is the data extraction. So this is data extraction. We're gonna look for under the browser automation, drag extract data from web page to the main screen. It will be stored in the data variable called data from web page. Let's leave it for now. What we need to do is we go to your web page. Now, this help window will pop up automatically to help you to extract. Let's pick up the field we want and extract it. First is the name. When it's red, we'll right click on the mouth, extract element value. We'll pick whatever that contains the value. In this case is text. Next, we'll do the same thing again on the second item. So we pick the name on the second item. This way, it will learn the pattern and automatically populate the rest for you. Look at that. It grabbed the name of all the entries. Next, we're going to look for the address. Notice there are two areas for the address. Okay, first is the street address. Right click on that, extract, pick this. It automatically picked up the same string for each item. We'll do the suburb. Same thing again. And we'll ignore the time for now. Let's just do the distance here. Right click, extract, pick up text. Okay, you can see all the data has been nicely populated to the variable, which looks like this. Click on finish. And click on save again. This is how you do web scraping on a web page. Now, that's pretty much everything we need to do in the main flow. Just to demonstrate how it works, let's add a display message window. We're gonna say, here are the data from the web extraction. It's gonna be really simple. All we need to confirm is the data is there. And remember the variable that stored all the content is called data from web page. Select that, click on save. Next, let's do a demo. So we'll close this page. Go save. And we will run the desktop flow. It should automatically launch the web page, do the extraction for you, and display the message. Let's click run. Don't touch the computer keyboard or mouse, otherwise the web extraction might fail. From here we can see all data has been extracted and displayed in the message. Click on OK. We can delete this step because we know it works. What we want about this flow is to pass this variable within the flow to the cloud flow. Now desktop flow will stay inside desktop flow. This data will not go out until we assign to an output variable. Let's create an output variable called var. I'll call it pad out. Branch locations. We'll use the same name. Put a description if you want. Go save. We'll add a step here to assign the variable. we will set the variable, which is the one we just created, the output variable, to the value of the flow variable, which contains all the data from the web extraction. Click on Save. So when we use the Cloudflow to call this desktop flow, the data will be passed on from the flow variable to the output variable into the Cloudflow. Next, instead of using the Melbourne as an input string for the search, we will create an input variable that's called vpad_in. Call a search query. Let's call it query. Basically, this information will be passed down from the Cloudflow to the desktop flow for it to do the search. We come to the step 2, edit. Replace this hard-coded value with the input variable. And that's all we need to do for the desktop flow. Let's switch to Power Virtual Agent. I created a preview bot called CBA Demo Bot. Select Test Bot. Switch off your training topics. Create a new topic. I call it Store Locator. Start with some trigger phases. Just near me. Here. Next, we want a user to provide suburb. So we ask a question. Area are you interested in? We will take the entire response for user. We'll call it a suburb. Remember, this variable eventually will pass the user input, which is the search location, to the Cloudflow and then to the desktop flow to do the web scraping. So that's it for what we need to do in the Power Virtual Agent. Next, we'll call action from Cloudflow. Click on Create Flow. This will take you to the Power Automate Cloud Portal. And before we start to use the Power Automate Cloudflow, I want to explain to you guys how we're going to manipulate the data input from the desktop flow. What kind of expressions are we going to use? So first, the output variable from the desktop flow is going to pass the data back to the Cloudflow. And it's a string. We will convert it to a data array. This is what the original string looked like. And we're going to use a split function to split it. First, it's going to split the variable which represents this data. I only took the half of a chunk of it. It's not everything. We're going to split by the new line break. There's a new line break right after each line. And this expression here represents that. So first, we're going to split this data with a new line break. And we're going to take the first part of the array. This 0 represents the first line of the data. And if you want to take the second line, it's going to be 1. And this is going to be 2 and 3, so forth. So after we take the first line of data, which is just that one, we're going to use the second split function to split it again using the comma. So imagine we're going to split to get this bit, each part of the data out. And because there's a space right after comma, so I'm actually splitting with the comma plus space. So once we've done this split function, we should get an array like this. Now it is much easier to work with to create a variable for our Power Virtual Agent, because we can access each part of this using array function, which I'm going to show you a bit later. So when we change number 1 here, we're going to take the second line of data out. The substring will be converted to the array like this. Let's move on to our Power Automate. Add action. Before we can use first step, I think we should call the desktop flow. We're gonna run flow built with Power Automate Desktop. We're gonna select the flow we created, which is the CBA demo. We're gonna select run mode as attended for now. Now, if this is the first time you're doing this, you will get prompted to connect to your local machine. Now, this new input will be the search query we're going to pass to the desktop floor from the Cloudflare. And that comes from Power Virtual Agent. So open your first step Power Virtual Agent, add input. We're going to create a flow input here. Let's call it query location. And remember, this variable will be taking the value from the input in the Power Virtual Agent, which I'm going to show you later. But for now, this is the variable sits inside the Cloudflare, and that is also going to be a variable we're going to pick and feed it back to the desktop flow to do the search. Also here we can put a initial value here, but we're going to leave it. Now we add another step after this called initialize variable. Before we can use data, we need to initialize it. So this step will return the output variable containing the data we want from desktop flow. And then we're going to initialize it. And let's call it branch locations. It's a string. And the value is this PADL, which is the name of the output variable from desktop flow. We're going to pick that. So essentially we're assigning this value from the output variable to this new variable here inside the flow to initialize it. Once we initialize it, we can start to use it. Add action here. We're going to add a compose action. An expression we will use is the one I'm going to show you from our slide. Let's copy this. This here. Now remember, this variable we created is called branch location. That's why in the expression we are saying split the variable branch locations, which is that one. And click on OK. And I'm gonna call this location 1. Now let's do the same for the other locations. There will be a lot of data returned from search, as you can see from its map located on the website. What we're gonna do is we're only gonna pick the nearest location, which I will take the top 3 results and pass it back to the Power Virtual Agent. So this is location 1, 2. I'm gonna change that to number 1. Okay, we'll add another step for our third location, which is the third line of the data array. It's location 3. And in the array, it's number 2. We'll click OK. Now, to help me to explain better, I'm gonna show you the results I tested previously. So from the second step, we can see the desktop flow is returning all these string data back to our Cloudflow. Now first, we have to initialize it before we can use it. So we initialize the string. It's pretty much the same result here, but it's a must step. Then we use the 3 compose action to take the top 3 lines out and turn them to array, and this is the result. It becomes array because it has a square bracket and they are nicely laid out. And after the compose actions, that's pretty much it. We just need to take each of these values out, assign them to a separate variable, so we can use them freely in the Power Virtual Agent and display the information in the adaptive card. So as you can see, this is the last step. Probably not seeing enough here, but if I show you my actions, I've created a name, address, suburb, postcode, distance for each of the 3 substrings. And the function I use is very simple. It's array. By taking the outputs of the last compose action, there's 1 here. For the name 2, for the second substring, I change this variable to number 2. And 0 just means the first item. Address is on the second item, so that's gonna be a 1. So pretty much just repeat this process. I'm gonna pause recording, go back to my demo flow, and start to add these variables. So we created all the variables we need to pass back to the Power Virtual Agent using the array function, except for the distance. Let me just quickly show you. Remember when this array got returned, the distance had an extra 2 tokens here, and we don't want that. The reason being is probably when we split it, we were splitting using the comma space, but right behind the KM, there was no comma and space. I think that is the reason why it returned with this funny new line break showing here. So if I show you the expression I used, each variable we use the array by changing this number 0, one to access different part of the array. But for the distance, we use the same expression array, but we used replace with an empty, with a blank outside the array function to get rid of that \r. Okay, so you can see everything is array except the distance. We used the replace functions. Okay, so let's save this. This is the whole flow that is passing. Now you might see this is different from my previous clip because I forgot to save the flow and I lost it. So I'm just going to use this flow I created previously, which is called PVA CBA location. Back to the PVA, we're going to call this PVA CBA locations. Click on that. You can see all the output from our Cloudflow has been passed back to the PVA, ready to be used. And this input flow, which called flow suburb, have a look at our flow, go flow suburb. Remember we said we're going to assign the input from PVA from the chatbot to match this. So we're going to select this var suburb, which created from our last step. Now, sometimes you might have a problem populating these variables here. It's just showing in red colors. There's no particular reason. As long as you save the power outflow, power automate flow. If that happens, it happened to me a few times. I have to delete this step, sign out of my Power Virtual Agent, log back in and call the actions again, and that fixed it. So this output variable, they should be automatically populated here. There's nothing you need to do. The only thing you need to do in this step is to assign the input for the flow. Next, we're gonna click on send message because we want to pass this information back to the user as adaptive card. Using adaptive card is actually easier than I thought. In the Power Virtual Agent, when we add adaptive card, you click on the media. This shows you the sample code. What we're going to do is we're going to delete this code and paste our own JSON file. Then we're going to change to the formula so we can use PowerFX to replace values in this file. Now to create an adaptive card, let's go to the Microsoft Adaptive Card website. Click on sample. Find something you like. I selected Flight Update. Click on Try It Yourself. Next, we're just gonna modify this layout and copy the code. And that's it. Now first, you see this warning here, we need to change the target version from 1.3 to 1.5 to 1.3. Next, we're just gonna play around with this layout. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna display the branch name on the left and then the distance on the right. We'll put the address here. So we put street name here, we put suburb and postcode. And that's one adaptive card for one branch. And we're gonna display 3 separate adaptive cards. Okay, so let's delete the top 2 versions. So we go to this card structure, which lies on the side. That's collapse them, so we can see the structures. As you can see, there are 4 columns that represent 4 different areas. We don't need the top one. We don't need the second one. That's it. Now for column set 3 and 4, we're just going to modify layout a little bit. For example, this is a text label. We're going to double click and we call it street. This one we'll call it suburb. This one we'll call it post. Usually the street is a bit longer than the suburb, so let's change the layout. Make sure this street we want to align to the left. For the suburb, let's align to the right. For the postcode, we make sure it stays on the right as well. For the data binding, in here, it has used some type of formula. I don't know whether you can see here. I don't actually know how this formula works, so I'm just going to delete it. And I'm going to put a hard value in here, for example, because we're going to replace it in the card content window back at PVA using the PowerFX expressions. Let's make sure this address stays on the left as well. This one suburb, we just call it Melbourne. Make sure it aligns to the right. Postcode 3000, make sure it goes to the right as well. Cool. We don't need this airport name, let's delete that. This one, we'll call it branch name, so let's call it, just call it city branch. And given that could be a longer name, let's make sure it aligns to the left. And this distance, actually we'll make it a bit small, this text size. Let's change the size from large to medium, maybe. Now you may not see the size on this side, but you can actually see the size. Some of them are written here. Maybe not, we're just going to change it from here. Okay, the distance, I'm going to make it maybe the same. Okay, same as medium. Now let's change this icon to something else. To change that, let's look at the code here. Now just notice this code is live. It had like almost 300 lines. As we editing, deleting, changing these things around, this code gets updated live. This is airplane image. We're gonna delete that. I went to a free website called Icons 8. Find a couple of large icon, colorful one we want. Let's use this one. Okay, right click on that, go copy image link. Go back to Adaptive Cards Designer. Paste it here. Okay, that's your card. I think we're done here. Next thing you want to do is you go copy card load. Going back to your Power Virtual Agent. Paste it. You can ignore this flight speak thing. I don't know what that is. I'll change this one to formula. You got a green tick, that's good. I don't know whether you saw before, it actually populated the card preview here already. Now what we're going to do here, we're going to simply replace all the hard coded value with our variable in the PVA. So to do that, first one is let's check our card again. What did we do here? SFO. I forgot to change to the km. That's fine. This is where distance is gonna be. So we come back to here, change this. So you need to delete everything except comma. To access the variable in the PVA, you're gonna do open bracket, topic dot. Got it wrong, did I? Topic, open bracket, okay, right, dot. All we got is distance. What do we call this? Let's say this is our first card, so we're gonna call it distance 1. That's 1. Now remember, there are 5 variables for each card. So look for another one. This is the city branch, so this is the branch name on the card. We want to call it open bracket topic dot name 1. Next one will be the postcode, so we'll call it topic dot postcode 1. Did I get it right? Topic dot something's wrong here. Let's come back here. Postcode 1. It is called postcode 1. I think we need to do case sensitive. Oh no, this is the postcode. Oh no, that's the label and that's the value. Okay, so don't replace your label, replace the actual value. Okay, so this is suburb. Hard value was Melbourne. Let's change that to topic dot suburb 1. Label street and change this one. And remember, I accidentally made it called address, so we're gonna use topic dot address 1. Okay, I think we've done it. All 5 variables. So repeat this process for the other 3 cards. And remember, every card will have variable to replace. And you're gonna do distance 2 for the second card, distance 3 for the third card, and vice versa. You have a green tick, which means this card is good. Click on cross and go save. And I'm gonna go create the other 2 cards. Now we have created all 3 adaptive cards, ready for the test. This is the whole flow in the Power Automate, in the Power Virtual Agent. Let's save it and start our testing. We'll say branch near me. Which area are you interested in? Call it Melbourne. Now at this stage, the PVA should call the cloud flow, and the cloud flow should call the desktop flow. The desktop flow will do the web scraping with RPA on the CBA website to find the locations we need and return back to the flow. After all the data cleaning we did, it will return 3 top line of the address results, deliver them back to the PVA as the variables and display them in the adaptive card. Here we go. You can see the address of the branch name, which they just named it by the street name, and then distance, and I used 3 different icons just to tell them apart. So this is basically how you create a Power Virtual Agent chatbot with the desktop flow using the RPA method to web scraping an existing map locator website and return them back to the PVA chatbot at display the information in the adaptive card.